Hello again, this is the 3rd of April 2021 and today I am going to talk about a subject that always comes up whenever you get more than two autistic people together, which is bullying. It's a fairly common experience. I'm not going to say universal. Because I haven't talked to every single autistic person around, but certainly it's something that the overwhelming majority of us have in common. I do find as well that there's a surprising lack of understanding. A lot of sort of platitudes flying around about, especially about childhood playground bullying. And really quite a lot of sort of very offensive stereotypes involved. This does come with a disclaimer. I will be talking about some sort of violent and some sexual violence. I'm probably going to be using quite a lot of slurs as well. So if that is not your thing, give this one a miss. I think the thing that sort of comes up quite often in sort of stories and films, but very rarely happens in real life, is this image of the bully being a sort of big, strong, usually male child like that. With two slightly smaller kids on each side, and just sort of goes around making everybody's life a misery. There's not a lot of that in my experience. There's also this idea that two or three people get together to pick on one particular person. Again, that's quite, I wouldn't say it doesn't happen at all, but it's fairly rare. It's much more sort of difficult to pin down than that. I mean, if there are just sort of two or three people making one person's life a misery, then that's sort of very easy for sort of teachers and parents to deal with. I think there is the majority of bullying does not happen like that. Certainly, in a sort of school playground setting, it is the majority of the kids on a sort of small minority of the children. It's very hard to sort of describe what is happening. It is hard to, for parents and teachers to sort of pin down and punish the perpetrators. So my cats are having a little argument. Oh no, they're eyeing each other up now. Come on, come away. Yeah, that's better. There are sort of various kind of prejudices that play a role, I think. I mean, certainly at my school, when I was there in the sort of late 90s, turn of the millennium sort of era, racism just wasn't really on the radar. I mean, we lived in a kind of majority white. When I say majority white, I mean majority white. I don't know the exact number. There were around 250 pupils in my year. 2 Asian, 1 sort of mixed race, black. And that was it. Everyone else was sort of white, British. I wouldn't say there was no racism at all. I mean, I didn't know the these kids well enough to sort of ask, have you ever been sort of a victim of racist bullying? But they always had friends. They were included. Certainly, I never heard anybody sort of talking behind the back about they're a bit whatever racists think Black or Asian people are. And of course, this was before Islamophobia really exploded. I mean, the Asian kids now here, they weren't Muslim, they were both Sikh. But I know I have heard a lot of stories of Sikhs sort of being mistaken for Muslims by Islamophobes, just because they are, they look Asian. They have sort of brown skin and black hair, so they're assumed to be Muslim by Islamophobes. That sort of really took off after the Twin Towers incident in 2001. And it's easy to forget just how much Islamophobia has just reached mind-boggling proportions over the last 20 years. Before that, I mean, I wouldn't say they were completely left alone, but there was kind of a lot less. There wasn't this image of Muslims as sort of terrorists, trying to take over the world or anything like that. They're kind of seen as, outsiders, a bit weird, sort of funny religion that, all the women wear veils, that's a bit weird. That sort of attitude. But yeah, this idea that they sort of want to destroy every non-Muslim, that kind of thing only really appeared in a big way, in the media and in sort of popular, the mindset of the general public after the Twin Towers incident. But yeah, there was very little racism, that I, as an outsider, as a white person, really noticed. The people weren't sort of talking about them behind the backs. They weren't excluding them particularly. I think probably if someone was being openly racist, it would have been disapproved of, let's say. Racism really wasn't cool at the time. I don't know what it's like nowadays. Racism has sort of taken over. As I say, racism has seen a big boom in the last 20 years or so. Of course, we have a big Polish community around here as well now. I don't know whether the Polish and the East European kids get a hard time at school at all. What was big was homophobia. Now, the homophobia was just out of this world. Just anything anybody disliked or they thought was a bit pathetic or a bit stupid, it's gay. That was just like the go-to insult. Oh, have you watched Big Brother? No, it's gay. Have you heard the new S Club 7 song? It's gay. It was just, I don't think anybody even sort of thought about what it meant or anything. It was just the word that sort of fell out of a lot of people's mouths as soon as something they disliked was mentioned. It's gay. And anyone who, we're talking about sort of kids in their early teens here, but nobody had sort of come out as being gay at the time. Anyone who was perceived to be sort of gender non-conforming or who hadn't had a boyfriend or girlfriend for a long time, was sort of really laid into for being gay. I got a lot of it, because I didn't wear makeup. more sort of chunky shoes and a man's shirt. So I used to get sort of, you know, really harassed pretty much on a daily basis for being a lesbian, which, you know, was half right. But really at that sort of age, I had no interest in anybody at all. I was sort of very late to the party. Yeah, I think that, you know, that sort of thing really stays with people. You know, especially if they are, you know, maybe not so much actually full on gay, but maybe sort of questioning their sexuality or sort of feeling like they'd like to, you know, explore it. It really makes people feel very negatively about that sort of activity, and you know, knowing that they are not going to get the support of their peer group, I think is you know, so quite a scary experience. I mean, this is sort of one reason why I get sort of quite choked up about, especially in the past, you know, gay couples just sort of feel this, you know, they're so brave and so romantic, and it, you know, because there is just so much. I have seen, you know, firsthand how much hatred there is. There still is, you know, even though you know, sort of gay couples now can marry and adopt, and you know, they're protected from workplace discrimination and things by law. You know, the overall society we live in is just so homophobic, and I know how bad it was when I was a child. It was actually a lot worse when I was a kid, certainly in my experience. Yeah, I mean, it was a criminal offence, you know, for, you know, to have a homosexual experience. When, you know, when my parents were children, it's it wasn't a million years ago, way back in the Dark Ages, you know. But there's this, you know, there's still people who, you know, are well and truly alive now, just in the 70s and 80s, who've, you know, actually got criminal records purely because they were gay in the 60s. I mean, that how is that, you know, in any way beneficial to anybody? I don't know. I'm just going to stop. I just think that is, yeah, homophobia does get to me, you know, particularly as a, maybe because I am, you know, a bisexual person myself. I have noticed sort of homophobic microaggressions, you know, in the past, you know, way before I was married, when I was sort of, you know, dating girls and holding their hands in the park and getting, you know, parents pulling their children away and some sort of shield. Don't, no, come away. No, that's literally how it was 10 years ago. You know, I'm not talking way back. Right. What else was there? Sexism. Sexism was also, you know, a big thing. And well, as I say, anyone who was considered to be gender non-conforming, you know, really got it in the neck. As I said, I don't know really how it is now, but looking at sort of culture aimed at children, you know, the sort of thing my son's watching. You know, the programs themselves are sort of pretty good, but as soon as the adverts come on, you get the, you know, the little girls with the dolls and the little boys with the robots. You know, the boys fighting, the girls caring, and you know, the merchandising of toys and of clothes. It's, if anything, even worse than it was you know, when I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, it's just, I don't know how anybody in their right mind can say, you know, sexism is not a problem anymore. You know, just walk into any shop that sells kids' clothes, and you know, you can see, you know, a whole rack of sort of pink sparkly clothes, sort of saying, oh, princess, beautiful, pretty, lovely, and you know, a whole rack of sort of sludge coloured clothes with diggers and cars and superheroes on. Yeah, that was a big thing, and you know, the sexual bullying. So particularly, you know, when we were in, you know, not so much children, but getting into teens, was absolutely rife. I mean, there is there's been in the news recently a lot of talk about sort of children being sexually assaulted at school, and I just thought this is news. I mean, it was a daily occurrence, you know, just for a boy to come up and grab your ass. Or, you know, try and touch your boobs, you know, sort of run after you trying to touch your boobs. I mean, and the done thing amongst the girls was to just sort of put up with it. You know, you were expected to just sort of deal with it. I mean, because I used to sort of shove them away and try and fight them off and kick them and shout, leave me alone, you know. You know, I was kind of seen as like, you know, the most dangerous ride at the fun fair, I think. And they'd actually sort of hang around in groups waiting for me to come by and then try and grab me. You know, this was a daily occurrence. I don't think it was, you know, even sort of sexual in the sense that they were kind of getting off on it. I think it was just about embarrassing the girl, sort of expressing some sort of dominance against the girl, and you know, sort of showing off to your friends. Oh, I touched some boob today, that kind of thing. It's, look what I can do to this girl. And as I say, the girls overwhelmingly just sort of put up with it and laughed it off. And you know, it was, you know, as much girls as boys who were saying to me, oh, why are you so frigid? What's wrong with you? He only wants to touch your boobs. He only wants to touch your arse. What's wrong with you? You should be flattered. Yeah, it's it's, you know, you can see why so many women kind of end up in sort of abusive relationships as well, because you know, they do just sort of condition themselves to put up with this sort of behaviour. There is a kind of group Stockholm syndrome, I find, amongst women. There's just so many of them who think that is just what you have to put up with in life. And a lot of boys who just grow up feeling that is absolutely normal, acceptable behaviour, and no one ever tells them to stop. Or if they do, they just laugh about it and grab them again. I think it's that, you know, the sexism and the homophobia are very closely interlinked. As I say, the idea of being gender non-conforming, as so many autistic people are, of course, was seen as sort of evidence of being gay. And it was very much, you know, seen as a really good excuse among the other kids to, you know, really have a go at somebody. And I'd say the sexual bullying, it started very young, a lot younger than than most people seem to believe. And so when I was 8, we had a new boy in our class, and he sort of had this habit of running around after the girls, trying to, sort of put their arms around him. Of course, as I say, when you're 8 years old, sexual isn't really a thing, but you can see how this attitude starts. He'd sort of try and grab you and kiss you and put his arms around you and things. And after a while, he sort of forgot about the other girls and he just went after me. I'd just be sort of, sat in the playground doing my little baby autistic things, sort of twisting the grass and making a daisy chain or whatever I was into, looking at a tree. And he'd just run up behind me and grab me. As soon as I was distracted by something, as soon as I was looking away, he'd creep up and he'd pounce. And nobody took it seriously. There was one teacher who, reported it to. She told him off. She told him to leave me alone. But then she left after a couple of months, and he just went straight back to it. And nobody else sort of saw my point of view at all. It was always, oh, he likes you, just give him a little kiss, just be nice to him. Oh, why are you being so horrible to him? Don't push him away. Oh, he just wants a little kiss. Oh, he loves you. There was no understanding that I was doing absolutely nothing to encourage this, that, it made me feel unsafe, that I just wanted to be left alone. He went to the point of trying to rope in some other kids to actually try and hold me down, while he was sort of trying to kiss me, and that actually did get him told off by the dinner ladies. I think they realised at that point that there was something a bit sinister going on. But then as soon as he gave up on that plan, it was right back to, oh, he likes you. And that went on from year 4 when he started our school, until we left at the end of year 6. And it only stopped because we were in different classes at secondary school, and we just never crossed paths. I'm going to go through a few sort of platitudes that I've heard about being picked on. I think that there's the main thing that really upsets me when people who don't have a clue what they're talking about start going on about bullying is the victim blaming. The idea that you can prevent it by just acting normal. Because you can't just act normal. Even autistic kids, they can't just all be perfectly acceptable. And as I've been describing, bullying is much more about sort of general social stigmas than it's much more about sort of people acting on bigotry. It's much more about sort of prejudice and discrimination than a couple of people taking a dislike to one individual. And I feel that there's not much understanding of this. Every time someone gives a baby an unusual name and everyone goes, oh, that kid's going to get bullied, you are victim blaming. You are suggesting that the way to prevent bullying is to not be a victim. It's not to not be a bully. I mean, it's in much the same way we took, you know, sexual assault is discussed in terms of, oh, if women didn't wear short skirts, they wouldn't get raped, that sort of thing. It's very much, you know, the same mindset. I mean, I remember when gay marriage was sort of going through the process of being legalised. One of the arguments that kept coming up against it was, yeah, but if kids have two mums or two dads, they're going to get bullied at school. No, that's not how it works. You know, if nobody teaches bullies not to bully, someone's going to get bullied. You know. And as someone who was, you know, sort of constantly a victim of bullying, you know, I heard very often from parents, from teachers, from, you know, the other kids in the class, why are you doing that? You know, they'll leave you alone if you just put some makeup on. If you just sort of carry your bag on two shoulders instead of one, you know, why do you put your bag on two shoulders instead of one? You know, that'll make you look normal. That's what you think that's all it is. It's just that I carry my bag a bit funny. I mean, this is the level we're talking about. You know, I've really got a lot of shit for carrying my bag, my sort of school bag backpack, on both shoulders instead of just hanging it off one. Who cares? Who's got time to notice? And I think as well, there's you know, there's plenty of stories and films around sort of portraying bullies as victims themselves, which, you know, again I find quite offensive. You know, oh, they bully because their parents are breaking up, or oh, they bully because you know, oh, his mum's an alcoholic, he's got a lot of anger issues. But what's that got to do with anything? You know, you still don't make somebody else's life a misery. You don't make it okay to take your anger out on somebody else. I think as well there's sort of a lot more focus on how not to be a victim than how not to be a bully. Nobody wants to be seen as a bully or wants their child to be seen as a bully. But I think at the same time nobody really wants to be sort of seen as being helpless. There is sort of as much stigma about, you know, being shy, being passive, being sort of seen as being weak. As there is about actually being cruel to other people. You know, there's all the advice about bullying prevention is about, you know, standing up for yourself, learning to say no. No, that's not how it works. You know, you prevent bullying by not bullying anybody. And of course it does follow you through life, you know, as I was saying, you know, the mindset of, you know, it's just something you have to put up with. You know, there will always be bullies, there will always be victims. You know, this is just how society works. It does follow people through life. You know, I am still, even though I've been out of school longer than I was ever there, I still, you know, have this idea that people are going to dislike me. I still have social anxiety. You know, I still assume that everywhere I go I'm sort of going to be an outcast. I still mistrust most people I meet. I don't sort of expect anybody to have any kind of personal integrity until I see some evidence that they do. You know, I have, quite. I mean, it's something that I'm sort of gradually working on and growing out of, and I understand that my attitude is not necessarily how things are. I mean, certainly as I've got older, spent more time around adults, I see that there's a lot less of this attitude of sort of picking on people. I think that as you move into the workplace, there's sort of a bit less stigma about being an individual and being yourself, being a bit eccentric. I think adults tend to admire those sort of qualities, or at least be understanding a lot more than children and teenagers are. But it still happens. Those people who were picking on the kids who were perceived to be in some way a little bit different in the playground, they sort of go on through life, if not actually outwardly making these people's lives a misery, they do at least sort of not feel that there's anything particularly wrong with that sort of attitude, and still being sort of quite bigoted towards anyone they don't consider normal. These things do go on affecting people. A lot of people who have anxiety disorders, put it down to being picked on at school. It's not a joke. It does seriously affect people's psychology and affect their relationships, and their self-image, and everything else. As I say, it is something that affects autistic people particularly, because we are sort of so often gender non-conforming. Our behaviour is sort of seen as being standoffish, or attracting attention. We are very often either very good or very bad at each particular lesson. I mean, I personally was sort of always top of the class in the academic subjects and just absolutely nowhere at all in PE. Which is not untypical in the autistic world. And I think as well, because we are not particularly concerned with social status and hierarchies, we don't necessarily feel that urge to sort of impose ourselves on others and to dominate. We kind of opt out of the rat race of popularity contest and fashion competition, everything that does define so many people's teen years. We kind of we end up being seen as sort of very much the perfect victim. And it is a mindset that it takes a lot of growing out of. I mean, we are sort of disproportionately likely to be sort of in abusive relationships, to be victims of crime, to be murdered. We are we do really get it, you know. I think the lack of understanding of what bullying is, what causes it, how it sort of goes on affecting people, is a very big problem in the autistic community. Can't be understated. And I'm going to leave it there. Out of time. I'll see you all in the next one. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. If you have any experiences you'd like to share. Yes, let me know about that. I'll see you later.